Good morning, everyone. This is Dynamic Dialogue for May 26th. Today's topic is collaboration as power for recovery. So we're going to talk about why collaboration is important in general and why it's important now more than ever before for companies. So just as a reminder, this is our weekly Dynamic Dialogue webinars. They are free through the end of June. We've extended them because of the COVID and the continued sheltering in place. This is an open forum for supply chain professionals, those interested in supply chain activities before COVID, during COVID, as we are still during, and then post-COVID. So whatever your interest in supply chain is, you're welcome to join us. You're welcome to share this link with friends and colleagues, and we're going to be here every week through June and then on into July and August. So we take suggestions for topics. We're looking for lots of different ideas. So any of your challenges, ideas, thoughts, you're welcome to use the chat and join in today. We'll take questions and share any kinds of lessons learned from this whole experience, that this is quite an interesting time for us. We'll do a short presentation, open it up, and we'll keep it less to an hour. And again, this link is good. It says through May. This link is going to be good through June. So I thought I would share this, this little picture on collaboration. I think sometimes I feel like this, that I want to collaborate with my colleagues, with my stakeholders, and yet I feel like I'm kind of in flux everywhere. We're looking at around the world. We're trying to fill in gaps. We're trying to work really hard, really fast, and get a lot of things done. And sometimes we feel like we're kind of staying in place. So collaboration is an important concept, and we're going to make sure we talk about why. So collaboration is a form of negotiation, and there are several types of negotiation. 4 or 5 different styles we're going to look at today. The first is a competing style. So a competing style generally is like the two people on each end of the rope. It's more of a win-lose approach. You're trying to approach this negotiation to win this, whatever the topic is. It's very results-oriented. It's short-term focused. Competing is a style, if you're going to buy something once, if you're going to buy a house, or if you're going to buy a car, you want to be the person that wins. And if the other person loses or the other party loses, that's okay, because it is a kind of competition. And you're trying to come out in the best manner for you or your family or your organization. And this is not something that you're probably going to have to go back to this party again and deal with. So the losing aspect of it is not, will not come back to haunt you generally. Now, if you're the one that loses, you may not have much recourse to go back and try another time. But this is very much a competition style. The second style of negotiating is compromising. This is where you win some, you lose some, I'll give a little if you give a little, and we can make this work between us. We both want to come to some kind of agreement, and we're willing to give some things and change our position a little bit to help the other person, because we want to reach an agreement. This is a bargaining. I'll give you this, you give me that. This is where you're at the market in some of the other countries that you visit where they have open air markets. You compromise. Well, okay, I won't take that, but give me something else instead. Or if you were trying to come up with sometimes when you accept a position at a job, you're trying to get more vacation, get more free time, get more flexibility. So maybe you can't get that, but maybe you can get some more money. Or maybe you want to try to get some more money, but they can't give you more money, but they can give you more time off. So you're compromising. You're giving a little bit, you're getting some of the things you want, but you're going to reach an agreement that you both support, but that you both gave a little bit to get there. But it's important to get there. So when you're bargaining, you're really trying to make sure you can close a deal, and you're willing to give some things up in order to get a closure on that deal. Accommodating is a style that's really the opposite of competing. This is where you're really trying to accommodate the other person. You're going to give a lot to get this done. This is a peacemaker type of agreement where someone's really trying to give a lot so that they can reach the agreement. It can be a position that's taken advantage of if you realize that someone is very accommodating. It's a position a company or an individual might want to take if you're trying to reconcile a relationship, if you're trying to repair some damage that's been done to the relationship, then accommodating might be the thing that you want to do. Or if this is a deal that you really want and you're willing to give a lot to get this deal. Maybe it's a customer that you really, really want, or they recognize that you're the customer that they really want. If you are a big company, I worked at HP for a while, and companies really wanted HP as one of their customers on their slide that said, these are our customers. So they were more accommodating at times than others. Usually accommodating until they got the deal, and then when they got the deal, then they weren't quite as accommodating. So you have to be careful of that too. Someone who's accommodating or a party who's accommodating, trying to get the deal, get the handshake, get the contract inked, and once it's inked, then they may not be quite that accommodating. Avoiding is another style of negotiation. This is really a lose-lose result strategy. This is when you're really avoiding the contract or the conflict. You're not communicating very well. You don't really want to deal with this. This can be a strategy that's employed when when this is not a meaningful result, when it's more not worth as much time, or someone that you really don't want to deal with, a relationship or something that's beyond repair and you don't think you can get it back, so it's not really worth putting a lot of effort into. And then collaborating is the final negotiation style. This is a win-win approach. This is when you go in to negotiate, but you both want to win. This is the kind of style that you should use when you value the relationships. When you don't want to compromise, you both want to get your wins out of it. You want to get all of your needs met and as many of your wants as you can. You may not get all of the wants, but this is not a compromising style. This is not a compromise solution. Collaborating means we both walk out and feel very good about the deal that we made, the agreement that we reached, and both parties are going to support this 100% or more. So this is very important. So these styles are very different, but all styles are appropriate at some point for some kind of negotiation. You have to really choose which style is appropriate for the agreement that you're trying to reach or the deal that you're trying to make. Competition is really good, as I said, for a one-time transaction. If you're buying a car, if you're buying a house, if you don't have to go back and deal with this organization or this person time and time again, competition is fine. Compromise is best when you've got some trust and you've got deadlines. So if you do trust the other party, you're willing to give a little more because you've got a deadline and you both really want to reach an agreement. And that's a situation where you may want to compromise or you may need to compromise. Accommodating can favor one party or the other more. Again, it's when you're really trying to do what the other party wants as much as you can. It can help in repairing relationships, preserving relationships, or landing that first deal. Avoidance, when issues are trivial, not critical to the business, and when the value of the time you would have to invest to reach that agreement is going to exceed the results that you expect to get out of that. So when you consider this a waste of time or a not best use of time, then you can avoid this altogether, especially if you have alternatives. If you don't have alternatives, this is not a good strategy to use. And collaboration builds on strong, trusting relationships, or it does help to build them. If you collaborate, it will help to build trust in the relationship. If you already have that, then you can build upon the trust that you have and the relationship that you've established. Collaboration, in my mind, is very, very critical when you have long-term relationships, when you want long-term relationships. You can have a very strong competition negotiation, and when you go back to that party to have to re-up that contract or extend that, if one party really feels like they lost, then this accommodating is not going to be there at all, and they're going to be very competitive out for themselves because they feel like they lost the first round. Now they want to make sure that they win the second. So if you want this long-term relationship, it really behooves you to go in with a collaboration mindset. And collaboration often results in more creative, innovative solutions. It does take a little bit of time to execute, but it doesn't have to take lots of time to actually implement this type of strategy. So you do have to be able to be open and sharing and giving each other some transparency as to what you need, what you want, and what the situation is. But the more honest and candid you are about the real needs and some of the wants, the more likely you are to get that. But you also have to be open to looking to an alternative solution. So you may be able to get your needs met, but maybe not the way that you initially thought they needed to be met. Or the only way that you saw was one path, and yet when you collaborate, you can find out that you can achieve that goal, maybe through a different path. So why take the time and why do this? One reason you want to make sure that you collaborate is suppliers have a lot of knowledge that their customers do not. They have technical knowledge of their processes and their tier 1 suppliers. They have technical competency that you're usually seeking to enjoin with your company's skills and processes to make parts and deliver the best product you can ultimately for your customers. They also know their capacity. So they know how much work they can take on, and they also know when they need more work. So this is an area to explore with suppliers when you're trying to collaborate. What kinds of capacity do they have? When is it going to be available? Do they need more work? If they need more work, this is one way you might be able to satisfy your needs by taking them more kinds of work, different kinds of work, increasing the volume. Again, there's different paths to get to that end result that you want. So utilizing their capacity more efficiently can be one way to do that, as can be using their capabilities. If you're buying a motor and all you're buying from them is motors, they probably have more capabilities. So if you look at buying the motor prepared with their cables installed, that can be something that can use more of their capabilities. If you're looking at the different types of motors they make, you may find something that works a little bit better. So you might be able to expand what they do with you, or if they don't want to do these extra steps, maybe you can take those away from them and let them focus on what is their niche, what is their core competency, and really build on that. They also know their financial information. They know what they're paying for things. They know what their labor rates are, what their overheads are, all of the things that can be very important to you in a collaboration to try to reduce cost. So many companies stop at, I know what price I want to pay, and the other company says, I know what price I want to charge because I need to make so much profit. If you start to explore and look at things like, what does their material cost? Can you help them get a better material cost than they're paying now? Can you broker a deal? Can you work with their supplier to try to get a better deal? Do you know of a different supplier of that material that might be able to give them a better price? Their labor rates. Maybe you can change, again, the type of work that they're doing so that their labor is reduced. If they have a lot of technical inspections, maybe you can help them develop your designs so that they don't need as much inspection, or offer them the opportunity to use your inspection techniques and train them on that so that you can make sure they are checking exactly what you're going to check. You're going to have better acceptance criteria, you're going to have better acceptance rates, and then they can reduce their labor because they're checking exactly how you're going to do that. They know their tier 2 suppliers, and they know the tier 2 suppliers. So they have insights from them. They know the capabilities, technical expertise. They know the strengths in those areas, and you want to make sure that you have access to all of that. Suppliers also serve other customers. So if they're in a certain industry, they have more industry knowledge and broader industry knowledge than you do as a customer. They may also have some insights into your particular industry through other customers they serve. For example, in aerospace and defense, they may know a lot of things about aerospace and defense. They may know just as much as you do and know how tough it is to meet some compliance requirements and other things. So you might be able to collaborate on that. If you're using a very niche kind of supplier, like a motor supplier or a pump, they may know way more about that than you do, and they may be able to offer you lower cost solutions, alternative designs, some modifications that will help you be able to reduce the price, them to reduce their price to you through reducing their costs, and then ultimately still maintain their profit margin while giving their customer a reduced price as well. They have the resources to come up with ideas and to implement ideas that you come up with collectively. So it's important to collaborate to make sure that their resources are focused on the same goals and the same improvement opportunities that your company is focused on. If not, they're going to work on their own projects, you're going to work on your projects, and they may not align, so you may not be getting the ultimate result that you want. They are the closest to their processes, their tools, and the components they utilize. So you want to make sure you include them and collaborate with them so that you get optimal expertise, optimal resources, you get the best information you can on all of these areas to come up with ultimately the best solution. So if you combine the resources, the expertise, the knowledge from two different organizations, you're going to get better solutions, you're going to get them more quickly, and it's going to be more efficient for both parties involved. So this is worth the time and the effort, especially now when we're having a lot of challenges in supply chains. So collaboration is important, but as I said, there's 5 different strategies for negotiation, so they don't all fit every time. So you have to look and say, where do I want to spend the time and the effort? Where's my opportunity, and where's my time going to best be spent in collaborating? So companies have a lot of suppliers, but they have very few that are strategic or critical suppliers. They have very few that have the ability and the opportunity for you to collaborate with them and reach what I call significant results. So you need to look at your supply base. You need to look for these opportunities. Start with the spend. That's always a good place to look. Where are you spending a lot of money? It may not be a large unit cost, it may be a total cost, or it may be a large unit cost. Even if you're buying a small number of things, if they cost $10,000 a piece, it may be a good area to look at to try to reduce some cost. So look for these opportunities. Spend is a good place to look. Unfortunately, many companies stop at the spend area and don't go past there. You really want to look at more than just the spend. You want to look at what kinds of risk factors are there for your company, things like single and sole sources, risk factors such as financial issues, either with your company or with the supplier. Suppliers who are feeling some financial pressures may be a lot more willing to collaborate than they had been previously because they need some relief and some help with their finances. So they may be willing to share a lot more of that information and give that to you. You want to look at companies who are going to be able to share and be willing to share their cost information so that you can build reasonable cost models, which means labor rates, hours involved, overhead costs, even profit margins. Many companies are reluctant to share that, but if you know that their profit margin is X, or you're trying to keep a certain number of dollars of profit in the product that you're buying, you can actually find more ways to do that. The more information you have, the more ability you have to actually find the solution that will make both of you happy. So look for the risk factors in your product line. What are the products that are critical to your business? What are the products where you're looking for things like intellectual property? Either which companies are handling your intellectual property, your designs, your patents, your software, or which ones are you incorporating their intellectual property into your product? If you're buying a pump, that pump may have patents on it. That may be their intellectual property. If you've been using that pump, that's probably a good place to go start looking for collaboration, because you need that. That pump is in your final product. It's what you've qualified, it's what you've certified. That's the part that you've been using. You want to continue to do that. So you want to make sure that you are looking at that supplier as a critical supplier and keeping that relationship strong and trying to work with them as closely as you can. It can be designs, it can be processes, the technology they use, a certain capability. Many companies today do not do their own circuit boards. They buy them from contract manufacturers. A lot of large companies and several small, medium-sized companies do a lot of circuit boards. If that is not your area of expertise, those are probably suppliers that you want to look at to collaborate with, because they know more about those processes, that technology, those components, all of that information than you do. They may be able to tell you that they can get better prices on components if you change the supplier of that, if you change the brand, or if you're willing to try some different things that they know have worked for other customers, then you might be able to drive some cost out, remove some parts, do some things differently. You want to look at where do you have contractual agreements, or where do you have directives from your customers to use suppliers. It doesn't mean just because it's a directed supplier that they're excluded from collaboration. Even though that's the place that your customer told you to go, you can still build that relationship and collaborate with that supplier. Anytime you have single and sole sources, single sources are where you've put all of your volume in one site, one company, and sole sources are that's the only company that produces that. That goes to more of what we were just talking about with intellectual property and some of those other issues. So you want to look at those kinds of things. And then you want to look at sources, again, where you may not have tapped into all of their capabilities, all their capacities. They may have other sites, other divisions, other capabilities that you really haven't tried to harness, and that's a good way to go look at that. So there's a lot of things beyond spend that are going to identify these suppliers that are good for collaboration and good for opportunities to improve. So some of these suppliers who own their own IP, who control IP for someone else, the designs, the processes, whatever, if they have specific equipment that's not very prevalent. I know suppliers that have, I've had clients that have proprietary equipment or proprietary programs for equipment, or equipment that's not very commonly used. So NC machines that have a certain capability, plastic presses that are very high volume, or high press requirements, large jaws and things like that. So you may say, oh, they'll never want to do this. But you know what? Sometimes if you ask, you can find that they're very willing to collaborate. Even if it is their IP, even if it is their design and their processes, oftentimes they're looking for companies to work with more, longer, deeper. And so if they value you as a customer, they may be willing to do this. They may not be able to give you their designs, but they may be very willing to look at their designs, structure things for you as a customer, because they also value the relationship and they want this to be a long-term kind of relationship. So you cannot lose by just asking or checking, verifying to see how open are they to doing a different kind of negotiation rather than just you give me a price and I counter that back. So I think there's 3 steps that you can use for collaboration. One is, again, choose the suppliers with the best opportunities. Look at that segmentation of your suppliers. Dive really deep into your suppliers. Look at the aspects and look at the opportunities to collaborate and reduce the cost, reduce the risk, improve the performance, improve the state of the parts that you have coming in the door. Review your current relationship status, look at the potential for trust, for them to offer transparency, and how willing are you as a company to be trusting and transparent with that supplier. If they're a competitor, maybe that takes them out of this picture, but oftentimes that there's a lot of opportunity for this. So look at their contributions to what your final products are. Look at their overall capabilities and choose those suppliers carefully. And then pick your opportunities to pursue. Oftentimes companies come up with way more ideas in this area than they thought, so then you have to focus in and pick the ones that are going to be the most valuable for you as an organization. So this is where you want to involve your key stakeholders. Make sure that you have cross-functional teams, that you're getting input from the design teams, from the quality teams, even from the marketing and finance teams, the production folks. Make sure that this is a cross-functional project for collaborating, because you want to make sure you're including all aspects of this for your team as well as for the supplier that you're collaborating with. Prioritize these opportunities for better focus and be able to knock these off. It's okay to come up with a list of 10 things and say, you know what, we're going to start with these 2, these 3, and when these are far enough down the line, we'll add in another one and add in another one. If you try to do too many things at once initially, you're going to spread yourself too thin, not have the resources to finish it, and not do a thorough job and not be satisfied with the results. So start small, look at the resources you have. Even if there's just one opportunity, start with that and build from there. So this is an area where you really want to expect great results from the beginning. You have to approach your counterpart, the supplier in this case, and make sure that they understand that you're excited about this, that they should be excited about that project, and that there are a lot of good things for both organizations. So you want to look at various levels of management, not just the 2 people on the street that are working together, not just one engineer and one buyer and one engineer from their side and an account manager, but make sure that you expand that. So you want up to director, VP levels, even general managers, CEOs, I see company owners, I see get involved in these collaborations, because you need that support and you need that visibility. Assign a project manager to make sure things get done and move forward. This is not a full-time job for a project manager, but someone has to take the responsibility to move this progress forward and to make sure that they're highlighting any obstacles that they have, and that they're scheduling a review so that you can look at this internally as a team and then collaboratively with the other team. Just because you're collaborating doesn't mean that every meeting you have to have has to have both you and the supplier. It means that you have to have regular meetings with both organizations. But it also probably means that you're going to have regular meetings from an internal perspective to make sure that things are progressing in the right way and that they're progressing at the rate and at the pace that you need them to. So this is a really good time to utilize a quarterly business meeting schedule involving all these key stakeholders. I've had some people say, we don't have all day to spend. You don't need to spend all day. And today with Zoom meetings, you can have a nice hour, maybe hour and a half meeting once a quarter, get a lot of topics talked about, the projects that you have going, the changes that you're making, spend some time reviewing the business conditions for both parties, make sure that nothing significant has changed. With COVID, we know things can change radically within a couple of weeks. So a supplier may have said, we're going to do this, this, and this, and then all of a sudden, within the last 2 weeks, they've changed because they got another offer from another company. They had a supplier that went south. They had another customer that came in, or they had some corporate people who came in and said, we need you to start making a product that you've never made before. So you have to stay on top of this. So quarterly business meetings are a good way to get all the stakeholders involved, but project managers have to make sure that they're touching base with each other at least every couple of weeks, if not every week, just for a short update on how things are moving along. And then you need to plan early on to share both the investment and the savings. This is an area where if you're trying to do this as a win-win. So if it requires some investment, both companies need to be prepared to invest a little bit, but they also need to be prepared to share the savings. And you can change the percentage of savings. I've worked in places where with companies and suppliers where they took the savings for the first year because they needed that to recoup some equipment they were investing, and then we got the savings, the lion's share of the savings the second year because they were able to let us have that. Or sometimes it's 50-50 and sometimes it's all kinds of different things. So look at what works for your two organizations. In the case where I said the supplier kept the savings the first year, they took on the investment because it was investment in equipment they needed and wanted, so they were willing to do that. In other cases, my company as a customer has been willing to share the cost of some equipment, but then that can get tricky if you don't have very good contracts over who does what on that. So sometimes we've worked it into part of the price where we get the equipment, or sometimes it's a tool, an expensive tool that we purchased and that ultimately belonged to me as a customer, and they utilized that tool until we no longer had business with them, which was many years later. So there's lots of different ways to do that, but be prepared to do that. And that's why you need that trust, because it may come down to sharing cost of investment, but at the same time, you're both going to be able to reap those savings as a result. So here's some tips for doing this. Start with known, trusted suppliers. This minimizes the unknowns. If you know the supplier, I always say there's no perfect supplier, but if you're going to have a collaboration, start with somebody you know and trust. That's better than starting with an unknown one. But sometimes in the times we are now, it may be someone who's really helped you through this COVID, getting into that position to be starting recovery. So then that's still known and trusted because they really had your back when everything was against the wall. So if they've come through for you now, they're a good supplier to trust. You have to trust the process of collaboration, and you also have to trust all the people participating in the collaboration. So if you have people on either team that aren't as trustworthy as you like, that you don't have confidence in, you need to make that known, and you need to replace them with participants that are going to have the confidence of the rest of the team, that are going to work as teammates and team members and support the team more than me versus you. This has to be a us project. Focus on the opportunity, brainstorm a lot of ideas, focus again on the collaboration and what is possible for both teams. Create your project plan with owners from both organizations. Both companies have to have someone who is the point person for this project to make sure that you make the progress and come up with a reasonable improvement. And then again, communicate, communicate, communicate. Communicate your plans, communicate your status, communicate the results. Make sure that if you have obstacles, you get those elevated quickly and to the right place, and that you continue to share and communicate throughout this process. Again, over communication is not possible. If there are obstacles in the way, they will come up, surprises come up, then you want to make sure the project managers either can remove the obstacles or know which champions on both sides of the negotiation, both the customer and the supplier, are the ones that can go to help remove those obstacles. One thing that companies forget or neglect, I think, is to celebrate and reward these successes. When you have a customer-supplier relationship and you really do an involved collaboration and you come up with a great solution, make sure you celebrate it and reward that. Joint efforts often warrant joint celebrations. So it used to be that you could go to the supplier and take everyone to dinner, or they could come to your place and take people to dinner, or you could both buy your own dinner, which is fine. Nowadays, maybe Zoom things, but there are ways to get people rewards in terms of money, in terms of time off, in terms of gift certificates, many different types of rewards. And work with your HR team. Don't think that people only want checks. That checks are always welcome and appreciated, but there are a lot of ways to reward people and to celebrate the successes that the teams do collectively. Collaboration aligns so well with a whole continuous improvement philosophy in an organization. I can't stress enough how important it is to, if you have a continuous improvement philosophy bent toward your business, collaboration is something that you should be doing. And if you are struggling trying to get a continuous improvement philosophy integrated into your organization, start with a couple of these collaborations because people will see how well they work, and that will foster that continuous improvement philosophy. Because this is not a one-time, one-and-done project. You have one collaboration, and then you'll find another and another and another. May not be that same supplier the next time, but probably a few months later or another project later, you'll be back collaborating with that same supplier. So collaboration is important now more than ever. I chose this topic because as we move into recovery, as we look at getting back to or getting up to our quote new normal, we need to collaborate with customers and suppliers to make sure that we're getting the best for our organizations. This economic uncertainty is here. It's right now. And it's going to be here a while. I wish I could say, oh, it's all going to be over by the end of June. But I don't honestly believe that, and I think many of you don't believe that either. If it is and I'm wrong, well, then I'll happily be wrong. But so many companies around the world, so many sites, so many different industries are involved in this that I think we're going to have this economic uncertainty for a while. I don't know how long, but not in the immediate future. So COVID has exposed all kinds of gaps. We knew some gaps were there, some you knew, some you were surprised at, and it's certainly created a lot of new challenges as well. So look at where you are, look at where you want to be, and figure out how you can enlist some help to collaborate with suppliers and overcome these hurdles. Many companies are in this kind of unknown area, in this abyss, looking for lifelines. And I don't mean just cash. I mean, they're looking for partnerships. They're looking for relationships. They're looking for things that they can do with their resources to keep their people motivated, to keep their people excited, to keep retention on people, even to put people to work doing something productive if they can't do what they were doing in January. They're looking for their next steps. Suppliers are looking for new customers as well as expanded business. Customers are looking for new suppliers and new ideas. So partner on this and come up with innovative, creative solutions for both parties. So look for your trusted suppliers, but again, the new suppliers that you may have found during COVID or the ones that may have that COVID has exposed that you need to find some new suppliers, these are the ones, the opportunities to look for collaborative partners. Collaboration requires trust, transparency, a sharing of ideas, also a sharing of goals and your needs and your wants. You've got to be more clear on those than ever. So if you're not clear internally, your collaborative partner is not going to be clear either. So it's very important that you get your own clarity straight and get that so that you can communicate that to the party that you want to collaborate with. Again, this is not a, Joe, go do this assignment. You're going to go collaborate with the supplier and you're going to do this. This is a team activity. This is where you need to make sure that you've got the right people working together. Again, it is not a 100% time of any individual person, but it means that people have to be able to work together, communicate, keep each other apprised of the situation, stay in touch, keep that communication going, and keep those lines of communication open. So teamwork and collaboration go hand in hand. If someone is not a good team player, they are not going to be a good person to be on this collaboration project. As many companies are finding out, and many individuals, supply chains are integral to recovery. Supply chains are going to set the new normal for all of us. We are looking at those in different ways. As I've said before, I know people that when I said I work in supply chain, they said, what is that? Now people are saying, oh, you're the one that does this. And I say, well, yes and no. Because everyone now is an expert in supply chain. But those of us who are experts or who have been mired in this for years, we know that these are very important. Companies are only as solid as their supply chains, and companies have found that out in the last couple of months. So they want, and suppliers need to be treated as they are integral to the success. because they are. For years, I've said these suppliers are an extension of our business. They are building our parts. This is the factory that's no longer here, it's with the supplier, whether that's offshore or down the street or up the road in Seattle. If wherever they are an extension of your business, and that's why they call it a chain, because all of these are inextricably linked. So it's important that they all work together, now more than ever. So if your company is wanting to recover more quickly, where are the suppliers that you can collaborate with that are going to help you get that product that you need, get that assurance, build that confidence in the rest of the organization to make sure that you can do what you need to do to recover as quickly and successfully as possible. So I always leave you with a little thought for the day or the week. I say strive to thrive, because that's what my word of the year is thrive. So I love this one. It's from Abraham Lincoln, who I greatly admire and respect. And he is quoted as saying, "It's surprising how much you can accomplish if you don't care who gets the credit." So in a collaboration, we're not looking at credit, we're looking at results. So Abraham Lincoln said, you can accomplish a lot if nobody's worried about who's getting the credit. So that's the kind of team that you need to put together to move forward with. We are going to continue in June. Next week, we're going to talk about some skills for recovery. We're going to talk about what kinds of supply chain skills are needed. And we're going to talk about some skill enhancement that you can do, even if you have just a shoestring budget. We're going to talk about coaching versus managing and how you get some of those. If you enjoy this, that's great. You can sign up for the June. Since I've extended it, the same link that you have is going to be good for on. If you want to talk more about this, you can just go to Call with Jane. That will take you right to my calendar. You can set up a free 30-minute call, and I can talk to you about how Purple Link can help your business through collaboration or any number of other ways. Supplier management, some of the things you're doing. I talked about getting to know your suppliers. I'm doing a webinar, I'm doing a workshop on that starting Monday. Supplier classification, now and after COVID-19. So I rescheduled this a couple of times, but we're going on Monday, 6/1. It's going to be from 11:30 to 1, twice a week on Mondays and Thursdays. It's a 2-week program, so we meet 4 times, 11:30 to 1, and you can sign up on my website, which is purplelink.co. So, and I also do exam preps, and then we're signing up for July for our webinars. So we have a couple of different organizations that are helping us. Prodex with Grady, he was one of our speakers. He talked about finding some of this hard to find equipment, PPE equipment and others, which Lord knows we're still going to need that kind of equipment going forward. So that's a good thing. And then Procurement IQ, who does a lot of industry market analysis, and they can help you find suppliers, and they can do a lot of different things. They have a lot of great information to share with people. So I'm going to look at, we have a comment or a question. One of the buyers where I work found a new supplier for masks. What was odd to me is that the company's a travel agency. The novel coronavirus has stimulated creativity in the business world. Absolutely. People are doing lots of things they weren't doing before. Products that I just spoke about, they are putting things on social media. Grady's a really great person to identify different ways to use social media, Facebook, any number of platforms. I am not a social media expert, so I go to people like Grady who do know that, and you can find a lot of things. A travel agency is very smart if they can pivot like that, because obviously travel agencies are not doing a lot of business. People may still want to take trips, but they don't know when or exactly how they're going to be taking those. Are we going to drive? Are we going to fly? Are we going to do this? Are we going to do that? I saw something in the last few days about the cruise industry coming back. So what does that mean? So there's a lot of creativity. The companies that have the most creativity and innovation, those are the ones that are going to thrive. So back to strive to thrive, that's what we want. So if you don't have those suppliers, or if your customers aren't in that, then you might look around and say, who does have that kind of creativity, who can pivot, who understands how to identify gaps, and then how to close those gaps so that we can all move forward. So that's what I have today. You can check this out online. You'll get a copy of the recording and the slides. So I'm going to close the recording.